Hello, welcome to New York Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have Dr. Paramita Mukherjee as a scientist, a national scholar with a PhD in genetic toxicology, transformed into an internationally acclaimed, award-winning poet. She lives in Mumbai, India. She has 7 books to her credit. Her poems have been widely published in national and international journals. Some of her poems have been translated into 39 languages, such as French, Italian, Spanish, Bulgarian, Uzbek, and many more. Paramita is an advocate of peace and conservation. Her soon to be released 8th book is about climate change and conservation. She is also an editor and organizer of events and promotes poetry passionately. Paramita is the founder, president of Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library Mumbai chapter, where she promotes fusion of poetry with other performing arts, promotes indigenous poetry, peace poetry, multilingual poetry, and global poetry. She's also the cultural and literacy convener, West India, of the International Society for Intercultural Studies and Research. She has been blessed by many awards for her poetry, like the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore Award, the Poetess of Elegance 2019, Literoma Author Achiever Award 2020, and Master of Creative Genius, to name a few. And the World Congress of Poets 2019, she received the Gold Rose from MS Productions, Buenos Aires, Argentina, for promoting literature and culture. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Paramita. How are you?
Thank you so much, Dustin. I'm so grateful and so happy to be on your show.
We're
I am
absolutely
good.
pleasant to have you. We're lovely talking to you, and we'll have a great conversation. I'm just curious, though. It's interesting that you were, you were a scientist and then you got into poetry. What prompted that?
Uh, I am very passionate towards science, but from my very early childhood, my mother used to read a lot of poetry. She was a great reciter, and somewhere in my subconscious mind, maybe that love of poetry was there, which came up after quite many years. So I started writing, say, about 6 to 7 years back, and I became very passionate about poetry. So I feel my mother had inspired me towards poetry.
So it just sort of kind of happened. It just sort of spontaneously, or one day you just wrote a poem and you thought, "Wow, this is something I really love doing."
I was the principal of a college then,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to when I did not have any administrative work or anything, you feel when you're very lonely when you are at the top. So I
Mm-hmm.
used to sit in my cabin, and I had a diary of my own. And suddenly I started writing poetry. And one fine morning I saw, oh my God, a great collection, many poems have been piled up in that diary. And then I said, why don't I publish it? And that was the beginning of the journey.
So you've come from there to you're working on your 8th book right now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Excellent. So, and your 8th book covers climate change and conservation. How do you think that poetry can play a role in advocating for climate change and conservation?
Absolutely, absolutely, because this poem are my many firsts. It's called Girls to Hisses, and it's a poetry book about climate change and conservation. And
Mhm.
I have written it along with an environmentalist friend of mine. So we have done very easy poems for young children so that
Mhm.
they understand, what is conservation, how to conserve, how to help animals, how to save endangered species. And so I think poetry has a great role in conservation and anti and climatic change and against climatic change. It has a great
Mhm.
role.
So, what sort of lessons do you impart in these books and your children's books? How do you go about teaching kids things like that through literature?
Say, supposing I've talked about migration in Kenya. And so where the wildebeesty, they migrate, so how
Mhm.
the lions sometimes, attack them, and how, so the concept of the migration to children I'm giving. Then another
Mhm.
poem about snakes, where I've talked about snakes, that don't be scared. Some of them are venomous, but they don't do you any harm. These kinds of things, we should not use snake skin to, all those fancy little bags and purses and
Mhm.
belts of snake skin or crocodile skin. So how do we save them if we do not use crocodile skin purses, or if we do not use belts such as snake skin belts? We can stop killing of crocodiles and snakes. And I've just put in poetry that way, and I've given a
Mhm.
short note before each poem of how this animal is becoming endangered, and how we as kids or adults can help to conserve or protect this endangered species.
Interesting. Are you familiar with a kind of poetry called eco poetry?
Yes, yes, I am.
So do you write eco poetry?
I have started writing eco poetry.
Excellent.
If you like, since you're suggesting, yes, I have started eco poetry.
So what do you feel is it's interesting that you're bridging the sciences with, yeah, especially specifically climate change and conservation with the arts, poetry. I mean, people sometimes think of those two as oppositional, science and the arts, but in some ways there's so much in common, and they can be used to sort of uh, edify each other. How do you think that works?
Absolutely. I am a strong believer in that we can bring science into poetry, into
Hmm.
literature. In fact, my next project is, Dustin, I'm writing on inventions, different inventions of scientists, and I'm doing it through poetry. Doing it through
Wonderful.
poetry. Very easy language for the children to understand. And it shouldn't be very, very preachy kind of thing, but
Right.
it's a fun thing where they know how the scientist invented something, how penicillin came into being, how
Hmm.
different things came into, how light, how electricity was invented. So these kind of things in very simple language for children and in a very fun way. So I am bringing science into literature in a fun way for children.
Right, and a lot of scientists, I think, they like to create, and they base their knowledge, and they learn, and they create things, inventors and so forth, just to do it. Like, a lot of them don't ever get a lot of monetary compensation. They don't get, and it's the same with poets. Poets, a lot of times they're writing in solitude, and they're putting their work out there, and there's no real financial compensation. I mean, they don't sell millions of books and become bestsellers overnight, kind of thing. So there, I think there's a companionship there between the lonely scientist working as an inventing and creating and trying to come up with something that would benefit humanity, versus the poet who is creating in their solitude as well, something that they think would benefit humanity in a way. It's sort of a quest for knowledge. And you think that I mean, I know a lot of scientists I've read about have also been inspired by poetry, or inspired by sort of poetic things like dreams, uh, to do to continue their inventions. And, do you ever use those kinds of stories in your work with your books that you're working on right now? Like, you ever have like a sort of like a life of a scientist sort of thing like that?
Uh, like I told you, I am doing a project on scientists,
Hmm.
but not yet. You gave a wonderful idea, in fact, Dustin.
Oh,
And the way
wonderful.
you talked about scientists and poets.
Hmm.
Sometimes they are just doing it out of terrible passion, tremendous
Hmm.
passion, and they don't think about the money they are getting. Like our books,
Hmm.
really, they don't sell as much as we want. It's my
Right.
eighth book, and the Sunday it'll be launched. But I know, maybe, it will not be selling so much I want, but I just want to reach people. I just want to tell them what I
Hmm.
want to say. And like I am doing these projects to bring science to the common, and especially to the children. So I'm feeling very, very passionate about it.
Do you have any insight on where that passion comes from? Is it sort of just like you said, you want to reach people, you want people to address these issues, and is, I mean, there's something must have like spawned this passion for science and knowledge, and I wondered if you have any insight on that.
I
Remember your
come
first
from a
learning experience, maybe like when you learn something
yeah,
new and you're like, wow, this is fun, I like this, you know?
yeah. You know, I, I- I'll have to quote my father. He was a very
Okay.
famous scientist, I think. And he used to tell me, he was a Commonwealth scholar and he was a professor of Calcutta University. So he
Hmm.
told me once, I remember I was doing my post graduation and I could not understand biochemistry.
Hmm.
I was getting confused, I
Hmm.
try to do it in my life is my father told me that when you know any subject very deeply, you should preach to other people in a very simple way.
Right.
So, that got into my mind. And I was a lecturer, I was a principal, I was a teacher for a long,
Hmm.
long time. And I always tried to make things simple for people. So I
Hmm.
think that ignited my mind. And even today, I want to, if you read my poetry, Dustin, if you listen to it, it's a very simple language. Because I feel when you know something very deeply, then only you can be simple, then only you can express it very simply and you can reach across to people. So I think that deep somewhere, that subconscious has come out to reach out to people in a very simple way. And poetry comes out from my heart. So, it needs to be very simple.
Right. I think it was Einstein who said if you can't explain it in a language that a child would understand, then you probably don't really have a very good comprehension of the subject. And I think there's some really
Yes.
complex subjects you could study for a lifetime, and take a long time to really grasp. You have the knowledge to be able to do that. So it takes a lot of persistence, I guess. So, what is the poetry circles like in Mumbai where you're at?
Uh, it's a wonderful poetry circle. Like
Hmm.
you had already read my bio, you have been very kind. And like I have this forum called Intercultural Poetry and
Hmm.
Performance Library. So like this, there are many poetry circles. There's a Mumbai poetry circle. There are many circles like this, and which have been there for a long time. And we have a lot of multilingual poetry in Mumbai, because
Hmm.
India is a country of many languages.
Hmm.
So some reading out Gujarati poems, some Marathi poems, some Punjabi poems, some Bengali poems. So it's a wonderful way of communicating. And sometimes what we do is, because so that everybody understands, we tell them to give us a gist in English or Hindi, so that everybody understands. So we come together many times a year and we have such multilingual poetry events in Mumbai.
That's interesting. It's sort of as a sort of cosmopolitan center.
Yes,
A lot of different cultures interacting and bringing what they have to the
yes,
table, and so you have this nice banquet of cultural
absolutely.
expression. That's wonderful. It's really good. It's sort of like that in Houston too, to a large extent. Here where I'm at in Houston, Texas. There's a lot of different kinds of people, and we have a lot of cultural interactions. And there's just really, I like that aspect of life, learning more about people and where they come from. It's a very intriguing in expression. It's like that's what part of what life is really about is, if we were all the same, we'd have nothing to communicate with each other. So that's quite wonderful that, it's an environment. And that actually, it helps bridge a lot of the science and knowledge too, because you have all these different ideas that are kind of being thrown together. And I think that helps a lot with, that communication helps people develop ideas quite a bit. Do you find that for yourself that interacting with different cultures and different kinds of languages and people actually encourages you to think a little bit outside the box?
Dustin, with your words, I feel that when you are interacting with different rituals, different cultures,
Mhm.
you yourself become a better person because
Right.
you're absorbing different cultures and different rituals, and you're becoming not only knowledgeable, but you're becoming a better person. You're accepting everybody as
Mhm.
they are, So that
Right.
becomes a beautiful experience, beautiful experience.
Absolutely. It's enjoyable too for me. I mean, learning about other things and just if
Mm.
there's so much, it's such a big world in so many ways that for me, I enjoy learning about new things about different kinds of people that I wouldn't know otherwise. I mean, for me, it's more firsthand than trying to read it in a book. It's like when you run across a person who's actually been, say, to China versus reading about China, and they tell you their stories, and you get a little bit more perspective about it. And it's
Right.
more, to me, that's more intriguing than trying to read. But of course, obviously, reading can't be substituted for nothing. I mean, but it's fun that you live in a kind of a multicultural, cosmopolitan area, and you ever like run across and have like one of those aha moments about climate change or something, from experiencing different kinds of people, something that you would maybe like you're talking with somebody and about something, and they have a perspective different than you, and you just think, I never really thought about it that way.
Yes, 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 that happens. That's why I'm saying, you try to accept other people's views.
Mhm.
Like people have different ways of thinking. For the same thing, they have different views, different aspects of thinking, and then you become a person who's accepting all, and then you are becoming like, yes, okay, this aspect can be there. Okay, this is a different view, but of course, yes, let me analyze the view. It's like that. So I feel I have become a very mature person after
Mhm.
doing these multilingual poetry sessions. I've become
Right.
more mature that way.
I think when you learn more about people and you accept people, you broaden your enjoyment of life and
Yes.
your love of life, and that can actually be a good thing for learning from people. To where if you learn to appreciate life in a deeper sense, when you realize that there's so many different kinds of people, and that all life is very valuable and inherently sacred, and to an extent that when you're learning about new people and new things from new people, that would encourage people to sort of want to go back into the conservation and the climate science and stuff, going back to those values. Then you want life to continue and preserve, and the more knowledgeable you are and understanding you are of things, the more you want to see the human race triumph, and see peace and see order, and have everyone free.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's wonderful that we have so many different kinds of people in the world, and I think that's something that we should celebrate. It's sometimes overlooked, and
Yes.
people don't really want to understand other people. They want to live in their closed circles, and I definitely encourage people to get out there and learn more about other people. It's a wonderful experience. There's nothing to be afraid of. So if you would like to share some poetry with us now, we would love to hear something of yours.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love to read a poem which is a very favorite poem of mine. And like you
Okay.
said, Dustin, I just loved it when you said that when we accept people, peace comes in, because we like to bring in people into our circle. And
Uh-huh.
that way the peace comes out and happiness comes out of it.
Right.
So here's
It's
a
a
poem
beautiful
called Freedom.
experience. Okay.
My thought about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom is in your mind. Scream for it, search for it. You will never find. Freedom is being aware. Freedom is showing others that you care. Freedom is respecting each other. Freedom is developing oneself further and further. Freedom is not taking others' decency to be your weakness. It is beautifying your inner being. not only your face. Freedom is limitless. It cannot be defined. It is something which helps you to be more refined. Freedom does not give you permission to exploit, nor give you license to hurt others with feelings devoid. Cherish freedom when you get it. Nurture your free life and advance it. You only have one beautiful life to enjoy freedom. You only have one beautiful mind to spread happiness in God's kingdom.
That's a wonderful poem. I like the way you're very concise and your phrasing, and it goes back to what we were talking about respecting people, freedom being, the freedom to learn more about people in a respectful way, and to treat them with justice and kindness, and then there's a lot of beauty to that, and I really like that poem. It was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. What inspired that?
Uh, like many times, if you're very decent, if you're very nice,
Mm-hmm.
people take you for granted. Sometimes,
Yes.
I am a very confident lady, but still, I too get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been written when I was much younger. And
Mm-hmm.
at a younger age, you get more hurt. You're doing a lot for people, going out of your way, reaching out, and they are taking you for granted. And so this word came into my mind that don't take my decency as my weakness. I can be
Right.
very harsh too, but I'm always kind. I reach out to people, I help out people. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean they'll take it as my weakness. My sweetness, my decency is not my weakness. So I
Right.
realized at a very young age that freedom is when you respect each other. Freedom is when some people are doing something for you, you don't take it for granted. You also
Mhm.
reach out. Because we don't
Right.
need material things. We just need some softness, some kindness. That's it. That's it.
Right.
So this, I think
Absolutely.
this, yes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just nice, like if someone's having a crisis, and you reach out and say, "I'd love to listen. What's going on?"
Yes.
Rather than, you don't necessarily have to throw money at them or like a any kind of new gift or anything. You can just simply listen and simply reach out and say,
Yes.
"Hey, I'm listening. I care. I'm here for you."
Absolutely.
And then it's true what you say. People often take it for granted that when you're nice to them and you do something, compassionate, and they just run you down. They just want more from you, and you have to draw a boundary somewhere where you're just like, no more. I can't do it. I've had that
Yes.
personally too, as it happens quite a bit. I think everybody can relate to that. We try our
Yes.
best to do the nice thing for somebody, and then they just think that, well, this person's just going to do it. Even if it's a matter of sacrificing my time and energy,
Yes.
and it's like, hey, I've got to draw a line here. I can't do it right now. I can't do this, or it's something that's unethical, even maybe. So if you'd like to read another poem for us, we'd love to hear it.
This is a Holocaust poem, if you allow me.
Uh-huh.
I had been to Dachau. Of course, it's a concentration camp in
Mm-hmm.
Munich.
Oh,
And when I
yes.
saw the museum out there, I became very agitated. By now, you know me, Dustin. I become very agitated when people are hurt unnecessarily and other people are unkind. And
Yes.
Holocaust was a horrible situation. So
Right.
I wrote this tremendous angry. I was tremendously angry after going through the museum, and I wrote this. The name is Dachau. Why is man the biggest enemy of himself? Doesn't man know he is the image of himself? Why this laceration of human dignity? Why this death from thousands to infinity? Why this cruelty to the other? He too is someone's son, someone's father. Oh man, why have you gone through the vicious cycle of harm? When you caused sorrow, didn't your heart sound an alarm? Savageness worse than death, hurting man till the end of his breath. Why this heartlessness? Why this torture? Why this mental violence? O God, let all wars, all cruelty cease. O children of today, wake up and be a messiah of peace.
Yes, that is a pretty angry poem, but it's also comes to a moral standpoint. And I think that the first few lines really caught me immediately. Is why are we so cruel to each other when we're an image of each other? It's a very powerful representation of that event. I mean, it's hard to really bring to language those kinds of experiences, and it's definitely an instance of very cruel people doing very cruel things to one another, and that depth of that emotion that evokes, that kind of cruelty it evokes, is hard to convey in language. And there's a lot of rage and concentrated rage in that poem, but there's also a moral to the story, where you get into you know treating, again, back treating with people with kindness, and this person is somebody's father or brother or mother or sister, cousin, whatever, and we all have fathers, brothers, sisters, cousins, and mothers, and it's something that we should consider when we're doing things to each other that we shouldn't be doing. That this is somebody's companion or close friend or something. So that was a very powerful poem. Thanks for sharing that. It's a good lesson for all of us to learn from. Who are some of your favorite contemporary poets writing right now?
Contemporary poets. I really like Santosh Bakaya. She
Okay.
is an Indian poet. You must be, she's on your
Don't think
Facebook.
Is she? I'm not sure. I have so many Facebook friends. I don't know.
Okay, she's
Unless I
Dr.
interact.
Santosh Bakaya.
I think maybe
I
I think I
just,
recognize the name. Yeah.
I love her poetry because, she has a beautiful sense of humor, which, she says many things through humor. And, sometimes feel as a poet which kind of person. So sometimes I cannot be so, I am a very positive person. At the end I
Mhm.
bring positivity, but I cannot put humor at times. So I really
Right.
look up to her. Her sense of humor is really, it rings, it lingers in your mind. And one of the other poets, I think he had also been in your TV, Gopal Lahiri. I love his
Oh yes,
imagery.
I love his work. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Very
love his
abstract.
imagery. I just,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Mhm.
I just love his imagery. Then I like Virginia Pasalo from Philippines. I love the way she brings in feminine problems,
Mhm.
feminism, but in a very soft way, not those very, hard hitting feminism. No, I don't really like, I feel a little
Right.
shaky, but she brings in feminism in a very soft, very mild way, but it lingers in your mind. So there's Virginia. There is Luz Maria of Puerto Rico, who is a great
Mhm.
friend, and I love her poetry. She's also a very good writer. And so these are some of the writers I love. Padmaja Iyengar, also from India, she is a very good writer.
Hmm.
I love her rhythm. I am of the old school of thought where I love rhyme and rhythm a little in poetry. And so I love her rhymes. I love her rhythm in poetry. There is again another Indian poetess, Swapna Behera. She writes a lot
Mhm.
about environment. So that way
Mhm.
I get connected to her. She writes about scarcity of water. She writes about greenery, how to stop climatic change and all. So these are some of the poets I really like.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's good that you have quite a list and a good list of reasons why those poets appeal to you. I think that sometimes it's hard to relate to a lot of poetry out there, and to really grasp it. And it's good that you have some that are people that you personally know, and as well as people that you interact with online. That's quite interesting. And it's wonderful that that the internet brings this capacity of us to sort of conglomerate of people all over the world
Yes.
in these various ways on social media and so forth. So, I'm curious, Yvonne, you've been awarded quite a bit and given a lot of prestigious accolades. How does that affect you as a poet? Does that ever, do you find encouragement in it, or does it just not affect you? Do you not, not think about that as much?
Awards are, of course, even we adults, it's like an encouragement. And, I feel that, okay, I am reaching out to people. Not
Hmm.
that I write poetry for awards. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate, and I will write whenever I feel passionate about anything. But, that gives me a sense of completeness, that yes, people are knowing that I can express myself well, so they are recognizing my work.
Hmm.
These tiny little achievements, I feel they are like endorsing that my work is good, my poems are good,
Hmm.
and it's relatable to them. That's why they are encouraging me. So I feel very complete with these awards.
Right, and it's not necessarily about the compensation or the accolades so much as about being told basically your work is valid to us, it's valuable, you're doing
Yes,
something positive,
yes,
and we appreciate it
yes.
basically. So yeah, that's a very good perspective, I think. I never got into the writing for awards or any kind of thing like that. I always just loved the idea of writing being about interplay of ideas and so forth.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dustin. I love your poems. I
Oh,
did
thank you.
not
Thank
take
you.
your
Thank you.
name, but I love your poems and I always read them on Facebook. Sorry,
I
sorry,
love
please carry on.
quite all right. I'll take any compliment any day. I mean, I write because I like to balance ideas. I like to play with ideas. I like expressing myself, and I love language. I love the sound of words and the way you can construct them, and you know move them around, and say different things with the language. I just put up a poem called "The Useless Eater" this morning. It was a response to an old statement of Henry Kissinger. He said the elderly are useless eaters. I think he was referring to Medicare, and why we should cut Medicare or something. It was some really bizarre statement like that. And I wrote a poem about that. I heard that quote quite often, that Kissinger had said something about people being useless eaters, and so I was like, I'm gonna write a poem about this. It's an old thing he said sometimes so many years ago, and now he's sort of in that phrase of useless eating. He's an old man himself. I think I don't know how old he is now, but he's an old guy. But yeah, that's a really offensive thing to say, and especially if you're in a position
Yes,
of
yes,
power. And I wrote my
absolutely.
poem about how, and I end it with the phrase something to the effect of a grievance is a harsh thing or is a wicked thing, and it deals with the different ways that we have resentment in life and how bitterness plays out in a lot of our politics and our social and our intellectual life as well. And a lot of people don't see it as much, but there's a lot of resentment out there being promoted as intellectual scholarship or as some kind of something. It's a lot of bitterness and anger, and of course people have a right to be afraid and angry and when there's injustice being perpetrated, but it doesn't really help the situation, throw fire and flames at things. So what do you think the value of community to poetic output is?
Sorry, please come again, Dustin.
What do you think the value of community to poetic output is? I mean, we always need
Yeah,
society, we need people, you
yes.
know. So, what do you think the value of community is for a poet?
Value. Community is tremendously valuable to a poet, because when you are like I said, when I'm mixing with different communities, again I'm getting to know the rituals. Again, I am in a community. The feelings I'm having when I'm communicating with this community. So what are the feelings, what are the happenings happening in such a community? So that is what we write about. Basically, what we are exposed to in life, we write about that. So community has a tremendous value in writing, in a poetic, for a poet. So I feel community is very, very important.
Right, and it goes back to what we're talking about, a cosmopolitanism and
Yes.
learning about other people's rituals and
Cultures, rituals.
culturals and all the things that people are that constitute a person, and the more you learn about people, the broader your worldview is going to be, and the more you can write about, the more
Yes,
energy
yes.
you have to write. I think it helps people to sort of energize them and refresh them, and you don't want to just stick in your own little dark box in the world.
Absolutely.
There's a little bit of light out there that can be shed on things, and when you have the presence of somebody else, I think that it helps balance your perspective quite a bit. You may not even be able to recognize your own behaviors in certain ways, and then somebody can come along and sort of show you in certain ways that you think this of yourself, but this is what we think of you. And so I think that's it may, and sometimes it could be good or bad. It could be good or bad. I mean, you may have a very positive view of yourself, and then someone says, well, I think you're kind of a jerk sometimes, and then it
Yeah,
could be the other
yeah,
way around.
yes.
And it's good to
Yes,
have perspective.
yes, absolutely. Wonderfully said. It's good to have perspectives, different perspectives. So, you
Mhm.
are absolutely, you know who you are. So it's like that. Again,
Right.
with your words, if I can say something, Dustin,
Go
like,
ahead.
it's wonderful to, since I interact with a lot of global people also, like
Hmm.
many like you, Dustin, you're a good
Hmm.
friend. So I have many friends from all around the world. And I feel as a poet, like after being a poet, I feel very complete, because when you see, certain feelings, certain emotions, which I thought that, only it was in the Indian scenario, then you see, oh my God, the same
Hmm.
feeling, the same emotion in another country. So that becomes such a beautiful experience, Dustin, and that itself becomes poetry. When the
Hmm.
emotions are so similar, that
Right.
becomes poetry then.
Excellent way of saying it. The passions are evoked by the commonalities, and when you see a
Absolutely.
situation that's not necessarily just local, and it also gives you a little bit of a glimmer of hope that to think that this isn't something that's specific to me. This is something bigger than me. This is a bigger problem, or a
Yes.
bigger beauty than me. That it's not just my side of the world. That's definitely true. So we have a little bit of time left. If you want to share some words of gratitude with friends or family, or even share some words of encouragement with our friends and out there listening in, who will have some fellow writers and so forth who might want a couple of words of encouragement.
Thank you so much, firstly, Dustin. It was a
Mhm.
wonderful time interacting with you, and I'm so, so grateful. Uh, I feel poetry is something which comes out from the heart. It has to be relatable.
Mhm.
This is just my suggestion. It's just my suggestion. It should be relatable. The language should be simple. We don't need to run to a dictionary, or we should not Google, what is the poet trying to say. Sometimes I find some poems which it goes like tangentially out of my brains, because I cannot understand. So I feel poetry should come directly from heart. It should reach the reader, and it should be simple, it should be understandable, it should be relatable. And
Mhm.
I feel so these are simple things which I feel.
And do you want to thank some people who have inspired you over the years, or say a few thank yous to people like that?
I thank my mother. I
Mhm.
lost my mother this very year in June.
Hear
So
that.
I thank my mother, who has inspired me to be a poet, and
Mhm.
she's always with me. My father is also not there anymore. My daughter is a great, great inspiration for me. She is also a young, budding poet. And I feel, in fact, my last book, I Love You For, was written for her, and I've dedicated to all mothers of the world. I love you for. So
I
it's
like that
like
title.
from her early childhood to her college days, when I had to leave her to go to college. So, different aspects of motherhood. I have like expressed different
Hmm.
aspects of motherhood. And I saw all mothers all around the world have the same feeling. So, so
Right.
I am very, very grateful to my daughter, who is great inspiration to me, and many of my poet friends who are great, great inspiration in poetry to me.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Dr. Mukherjee. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I hope that you keep writing and keep up the activism with and science with climate change and conservation, and keep doing everything you're doing, and just keep energetic and in these positions where you're able to, keep winning awards and keep getting recognition. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you. So this has been
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Quite
thank you
welcome.
so much, Dustin. It was so wonderful to talk to you and
You
such
too.
valid, such beautiful questions. I was
Thank
like
you.
very, very happy, delighted.
Thank you so much. This has been the New York Parrot Literary Corner. Today we're in Mumbai, India. Tomorrow you never know where we'll be. We may be in the United States. We may be in China. So keep a lookout. Subscribe to our channel. Please subscribe to our channel. I implore you. It'll be a wonderful experience. You'll learn more about the world out there and the writing world and the writing community, and you'll receive a lot of good inspiration words from fellow poets, fellow writers, fellow creative minds. This is the best and only platform for global creative minds. This is the Parrot Literary Corner. We just released our anthology a couple of days ago. If anybody's interested in getting a copy, let me know. I'll send you the link. It's on Amazon now. It's called The Literary Parrot, Series 1. So take a look at that. You can donate to us at paypal.me/nyparrot. That's paypal.me/nyparrot. That link will be on the YouTube station on this video. And if you would like to be in touch with me, for any reason, to submit poetry, to submit a short story, or to be a guest on our program, you can reach out to me, literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. My name is Dustin Pickering. I have been your noble and honest host as usual on a daily basis. So thank you very much for your time, and get out there and write, talk to people, learn more, be careful, be safe, and take care of yourself. And all you guys out there, just don't give up on your writing. No matter how minuscule you think you are, you're important out there. So just keep writing, just keep publishing where you can find your work read, and develop your community out there as much as you possibly can. If you can't do it out in the real world, do it on the internet. Spend time with your family and folks and enjoy yourself. And we have a one life to live. It's very short, so keep a lookout on yourself, and try to be happy and maintain your sanity out there during this tough time. It's very dark out there right now. So thank you guys for joining us, and please subscribe to our channel and keep a lookout for our future content. Thank you very much. This is Dustin Pickering signing off. Voice for Humanity.